if
Well,
the
mate,
measure,
I've got some numbers. I did some numbers, and I like numbers. We like numbers here, so I
mm,
just want to throw these out. So the spending, the federal government spending is $770 billion
mm,
or thereabouts. It varies, of course, from year to year, and of course, it doesn't always match exactly. But 700, say, $750 billion a year is the spending of our federal government. The spending of state governments is about 400 billion. There's a bit of crossover and overlap there because, of course, in Australia, the federal government collects all the taxes and distributes money to the states. The amount of money that they distribute to the states is about 237 billion out of that 770.
that's correct.
The states
And
raise the rest, right? So the actual total government spending in Australia is about 930 billion. 930. So we're pushing the $1 trillion cost of government,
ex-
um,
exactly.
which
And
is
then you,
which is high, right? I mean,
well,
America's high. America's. I think it's a 10 US trillion, which is 15
so if
Australian trillion.
so
But
Australia's got the vagary of three levels of government, right? So 27% of GDP is your tax take. 28% is your tax take. Yeah, and then you add in state government, right, through all the stealth taxes, and then of course you got the red Joes and all that. Remember, you've got seven different registrations, and then you've got seven different IT systems. You've got seven different laws. You've got for everyone who bangs on about crime data, there's not one consistent national set of monthly crime statistics. Why? Because they're categorized differently across states. And so the actual ability to get things done, like you mentioned before, like we can't come up with really funky new businesses because we've got a generation now where we rely on our technology advances to come from overseas. Things such as ZFPOS, for example, was built in Australia. Was made in, like in the Wi-Fi and all that. Those things came here. But the thing is, we'd actually like, the idea of startups is a bunch of people in bean bags and you know turtleneck skivvies talking about drones delivering pizzas, and that's a level of innovation. When really, the R&D rort, and that's what it is basically keeping a bunch of zombie businesses open. The research stuff should be for genuine STEM related, um, you know, research endeavors that are going to change the world, as opposed to this idea of, YouTubers graffitiing on whatever wall they want to. I mean, there is no, people want to buy into a plan. What's the plan for Australia? Right. If it's farm and quarry, great. Okay, let's go for it. But, you know, the knowledge industries, the things that the country wants to do, they can't. And as a result, all we're doing, our measure of wealth is what we can buy and sell existing property structures for. That's it.
yeah, just on the point of government taxation, right?
Hmm.
So our taxation level now, I think, is what is it? About 800. Yeah, about 800 billion.
Hmm.
I note that governments are spending 930 billion, so there's a $130 billion gap there, which is just adding to our debt tally, which is
Absolutely.
already another story. But that 800 billion tax, I don't think a lot of people realise that only 10 years ago it was 430 billion.
There's
And there's only
430
been
billion.
30% inflation, mate. So it should only have gone up about 120. It should only be at 550 billion.
I think what people are not seeing in that is the bracket creep that gets collected now. The number of people that have moved into those higher tax brackets. The other one too is the cost of Australia's to do the pension system or Centrelink or whatever like that. That is expensive. But here's the other one which no one ever thinks about. Australia's much vaunted superannuation system where you basically we the mug hand over our 13% of what we earn or 12% of what we earn every year, put it in a black box and can never touch it again. And if you do touch it, you're considered a crank or a crazy or grossly irresponsible for deciding what you want to do with your own money. It's a very, very expensive system to oversee. It's a very, very expensive system in terms of the goodies which come with it. Um,
But
again,
it gives a lot of
people,
power to those superannuation funds,
but
and a lot of them are
again,
industry
all
funds, and we've talked about that in the past.
Damien, all it does is it just reinstates, or just basically reinforces, I should say, the oligopoly mentality we have in this country. we don't have the entrepreneurial mindset, which is set to really explode in the United States because there is a thing where, let's get it going. Let's do something different.
There's no incentives here for business at all. I
There,
mean,
there,
all,
there, there,
small business. I'm in small business. All I do is pay tax. I feel like I'm putting my hand in my pocket for thousands of dollars
so,
of tax every other week.
so I collected two invoices today, and so basically, like, this is not huge money, but $3,000. I have to set aside half of that for tax, just because I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Because it's a madness. So
I just want to reinforce that number again. Total taxation in Australia 2013 2014, $430 billion. Total taxation in Australia today, $800 billion. There's only been 30% inflation in that period, in that 10 years, yet our tax has almost doubled. It's almost doubled.
exactly, it's almost doubled.
So where the hell is it going, and what are they bloody spending it on? You did mention income tax and bracket creep, but income tax is only $250 billion. It's only $250 billion. So it's probably not mainly that, right? I mean, a lot of it would be.
Well, income tax is the biggest. Income tax is the biggest one of that. I think it's a bit higher. I think it's about 300 billion. Yeah, yeah. I think so, and I think the corporate tax rate's around 100. So the corporate tax collect is around 150. The GST is about 80. That's just off the, and then
Yeah, GST was 73, I think, last year. Yeah,
and
so
so
78.
and so the receipts they get from mining and resources and natural gas are very, very high, and that's the problem again. Like Venezuela.
Don't tell the Greens that, right? The Greens will tell you there's no corporate tax, there's no mining tax, there's no royalties. We've got to. Last week on the show, in fact, why don't we play it now, mate? I might just share the screen if I can and see if we can play this clip of Adam Batt that I played on the other side on Friday. I'll get your thoughts on it. But this is him speaking at the press club, the National Press Club lunch. I think it was late last year, right? But he was doing his kind of big spiel, bigging out. It's more or less, here's what we believe, the Communist Manifesto for the next federal election. Mm-hmm. So let's just have a look at this one if we can.
The major parties also hate the climate movement so much that they're throwing peaceful protesters in jail. Our coal and gas exports cause more damage to the world than any other country bar Russia. But instead of being concerned by the big corporations making billions burning up our future, they're locking up the people who are prepared to get in the way. But the climate movement still grows. There is also a growing movement fighting for control of rents to bring down the cost of housing for all. A movement fighting for mental and dental care for all. A movement fighting for free university, TAFE, and to wipe all student debt. A movement fighting for raising income support so that no one in this wealthy country of ours lives in poverty. A movement to make price gouging from the banks, supermarkets, and power corporations illegal to bring down the cost of essentials for us all. A movement for publicly owned renewable energy and an end to more coal and gas. A movement for peace, a movement for equality of all, a movement for treaty and truth. It's time to reject politics as usual. It's rigged. We need a new politics which puts people first and which tackles the big problems that we face. And this isn't just a dream. Currently, the Greens hold balance of power in the Senate. This election, we will be running the biggest campaigns in Green history to win lower house seats too. There are at least 5 new seats across the country where we believe we're in with a strong chance.
But it isn't just a dream, Dan. It isn't just a dream. It's it's a nightmare. It isn't just a dream. We can make this vision happen. This vision of complete totalitarian fascist, government control.
Damien, I thought that was delivered. That speech may have been delivered from the yurt. I mean, that was just.
But the problem is, mate. Well, not most. All right. Well, most people under 30, but a significant number of Australians will buy that narrative. I mean, they'll think that sounds just lovely.
Until they go overseas and travel and see the world, and they go, right. Everything Mr. Bant just spoke about then is funded by resources. Okay, the income tax we hand back to the government, or effectively we work for 3 months of the year for nothing, or 4 months in some cases, five, and hand back to the government, which is our income tax. The royalties and the that we collect from the resources, that's the cream which pays for the largesse, which pays for the madness. In a way, it's a curse because if anything, resources basically mask the problems of not reforming when you get these windfalls, and it's cringeworthy and embarrassing. I don't know when both sides of politics get up and they say it's our strong management that's done this. No, it's not. It's the fact that it's a gigantic landmass with a lot of natural minerals, and it's the dumb luck which allows it to happen. I mean, you can
It's in
drive
spite of
more,
your management and your interference that we're still able to function.
but like just listening to that, then like this idea of uh, like you can't make it up. I mean, rent caps. I mean, are you nuts? It doesn't work. And, no credible economist or no credible person has ever lent their name to such things. And so, sadly again,
Can you imagine
when
the
they're,
impact of rent caps on the housing crisis, Adam?
well, it would just, but again, it's sent from the position of privilege. Here's the thing: people in the Greens, they like to rally against the corporate Australia, or the business person, and they can put up the visage of a bunch of bulldog bankers, smoking cigars. But the truth of the matter, the business person in Australia is actually paid well below, in most cases, and pays themselves last, most of their staff, right? And they're navigating an incredibly complex tax system that is, you know, that is punitive and punishes risk. And the fact of the matter is the big draw is the industry at government, and that's reflected in the fact that where does the population live? In the cities. Why? Because that's where the honeypot is, and we pay for it. And until we actually start getting smarter and being able to have dangerous debates, such as, really, should we abolish the states? Should we actually have regional councils instead? Should we have, local hospital boards and education boards? Should we actually drive competitive federalism? Then you're only going to get more of the same. It's not a continent of a big brown land. It's a thin green strip primarily on the east coast of Australia, and that's it. And the fact of the matter is, you've got all these places are full, and they're not moving the needle. And why not? Because we don't have the capability, because we're not producing that next generation capable of doing what we're saying to people is, isn't it great? And we're lulling ourselves into that, this idea that we're so smart when actually sadly we just don't seem to have the, I would say, the drive to really change. What could be the most successful nations in history have been the ones where it's been the populace that's gone out and thrived and shown individualism. And if that's not championed at some point, then you get what we got now, collective failure.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there about the state, like driving competitive federalism, because a lot of the argument for keeping the states that you hear from people, particularly on the libertarian side of politics and that sort of thing, they say, no, we've got to have the states because the states.
Why? They're just meandering.
Well, it creates competitive. It creates, state A is acting like Dan Andrews. Then state B can be doing something different, and if it succeeds.
But again, what's the line? It's just like a line in Albury-Wodonga. It's just a line that, like it doesn't solve cancer. That particular line just happens to be a line on a map. No one lives there. Like no one. It's.
You're saying that competitive energy could come about from regional councils.
Absolutely. I mean, it's absurd.
You'd still have the same sort of, no, we're pushing back on the federal government. It's pushing back on the feds, I think, is what the libertarians worry about, that if you don't have the states.
Well, the thing is, I think they need to get out more in terms of like, and if, and the getting out part is the case of, the point I'm making is the people in Cairns, for example, have no self-determination. Why? Because they answer to the capital in Brisbane.
Well, they got the double whammy, right? They've got to listen to Brisbane and Canberra. So, I mean, it's like, if you're in remote Queensland or far north Queensland, it's like, give us a break. I mean...
But it makes it impossible. There's no significant self-determination for these places. And the self-determination would actually be good for media, be good for, banks and all sorts of things. So there we are. But there's my hot take.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so just coming back to the main drivers of this cost of living crisis, it's not supermarket price. Let's just put that out there for once and for all and kill it, shall we? It's not supermarket price gouging. That's just plays into the. It's not government. It's the corporations, the big evil corporations, which government likes to drive. So all the parties are pushing that nonsense. Okay, I mean, I'm not making excuses for some of the behaviour of the supermarkets, by the way, because there are issues. But I'm just saying that that's not our cost of living problem driver. I want to talk to you particularly about energy because I know you're a bit of an expert in this area. So tell us a little bit about the narrative we often hear is that our mining industry, our coal industry, energy-related coal industry, our gas industry and everything are all getting away with blue murder and they're sending money overseas and Australians are not getting the royalties. That's a bit of a myth, isn't it, Dan?
It is. I mean, the coal story is... Well, I mean, the coal story is half Australia's coal exports are met coal, which make the wind turbines which fall over in Victoria. It's steel making coal. The energy coal, which comes from New South Wales, goes to Japan primarily, and that goes a lot for their heating, and it's a redundancy measure. And the gas is part of a deal which the Labor government under Rudd sold for a decade, probably for too cheap in the end, but it's tied to the oil price, and that's it. So it's they're not getting away. If they're getting away with blue murder, the projects would be lining up. They're not. In the case of Queensland, those met coal projects no longer are happening, and why not? Because 40% is your top marginal rate of royalty tax. You'll pay 20% just in government levy. That's not corporate levy, government royalty levy at the state level before you even submit your financials.
Yeah, well, this is something about the free market and pricing mechanisms and all of that that would make a Green's head explode, simple brain explode. Let's just break it down in simple terms for people. Mining's an industry, gas exploration, extraction is an industry. These industries it has to be attractive for them to come and do projects.
You have to have
and your point is they're not turning up to do projects.
No, they're like, and I'll tell you what, you can download the data tomorrow or tonight, but that is the fact. The projects are no longer happening. And in the iron ore case, which has been the dumb luck driver for the last decade, 2 decades really, but that's tied to a property market in China which has got some serious problems. So you've got a pretty linear, pretty narrow economy, and like these things where the Greens think it's infinite money and print your money forever. I hate to tell you, but the numbers don't tell you that. And again, it also shows, for example, how susceptible we are to the headline in this country. So we talk about...
Well, the Greens don't deal in reality, and they just pump these messages out.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people in the Labor Party and even the Liberal Party, I don't know if they're necessarily that close to the detail, but they need to be.
Well, nobody's trying to counter the narrative, right? No, they're all out there saying, because everybody in government and politics benefits from business is evil narrative, right? So let's push the business is bad narrative. The villain is the corporation. The villain is the supermarket. The villain is the blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. And so it's an easy sell. Most people go, yeah, corporations, evil, great, okay, get it. These are the good guys, they're the bad guys. We'll just vote for the good guys. It's very simplistic, but that's kind of where we're at. And we've still got 10 to 12% of people showing up in every poll saying they're going to put the Greens first, which just blows my mind. And we are heading down. We're heading for a coalition Green Labor government. That's what we're heading for.
I don't. I think. My personal take is I think the Liberals will probably be the dominant party in lower house. I think the Teals might get a bit of a whack because they don't have anything to run on.
The Other Side doesn't get more than $1 billion of taxpayers' money to bring you news from a centre-right perspective like the ABC does to bring you news from a left-wing perspective. In fact, we don't get a red cent from the government. We need voluntary donors and supporters like you to keep going and growing. And we hate asking for charity, so we've done a deal with what we think is the world's best VPN, Virtual Private Network Service. It'll keep you and your family truly safe without slowing down your internet speeds, and you can watch Netflix or other streaming services using your regular accounts with them as if you're viewing from any country in the world. And you can sign up for less than $3 a month and get a whopping 83% off the normal price. Just go to piavpn.com/otherside to sign up and get more info. That's piavpn.com/otherside.
The Other Side with Damien Coorey is Australia's best independent news commentary show. As we enter our 5th year, we're going to be bringing you more content via our YouTube and X channels at Other Side Oz with The Other Side Unplugged. More content when it matters, but only when it matters, so you don't miss a thing. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel at Other Side Oz by clicking the button and the bell below the picture frame, and follow us on X now at Other Side Oz. That's AUS at Other Side Oz. It's free. This is The Other Side. Stay in touch. Check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month.